Oh, did you need me to count you in?
No, I don't know. Okay. Welcome to the Campfire Passport podcast. Is this the third intro we've done in studio?
It is.
I almost feel like I know what I'm doing, but not quite. I'm going to get there.
Getting close.
Soon. Tonight we have a guest on the podcast, which really grown to like guests. At first I was very apprehensive about the guest. I wanted guests because I think it's fun, but then like I didn't know if I liked the process, but I do. Every guest we've had on has been awesome. And it's really fun to meet a new person and learn their experience and talk to them about, like we were just talking about before we jumped on again, the thing that interests them and their passion. And I think that's awesome. So anyways, we have Ryan, who is Ready Rig 4x4. So Ready Rig 4x4 on Instagram. Mm-hmm. Great listen. Super interesting guy. Not only is he like the first guy to do 37s on a Colorado ZR2, plus a bunch of other cool stuff now. He's also big in motorsport, knows a lot about what he's talking about. He's a vet. He's just a super nice guy. He was really fun to hang out with for a little while. And of course, like every guest that we've had on, we invited him to go to the Rubicon with us in a few months, which I think is fun. So anyways, Ryan, we really mean it when we say that. When you listen to this, come hang out with us because I know you're close by. And if you can't, oh well. But we'll do another podcast maybe. Otherwise, you should check out our Alvord video, which has my monotone voice on it the entire time. That is crushing the numbers right now. It's for us, yeah. For us, it's doing really well. And I think it's a good watch because AJ had some great videography in there. And, you know, if you listen to it, there's some tidbits that you can pick out of it that are fine. But we'll work on it. We'll figure it out. Yeah. Other than that, like, comment, subscribe, Campfire Passport on all your favorite things. Colin, anything else?
Not a ton. We did get our first fan mail.
Oh my God, really?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And it's a fan. It's not a hate mail.
No, it's not a hate mail this time, which is surprising, right? But yes, we have a Tyler, and I'm not going to say his last name just for, safety's sake.
Shout
I don't know if he wants his name out there, but, Tyler, he reached out to me and said he liked the podcast and, appreciates what we're doing.
Oh, man.
And I told him, give me your address. I'm sending you stickers. Like, I'm going to throw him some stickers here, and he'll get those before this even posts, I'm sure. So
2 things. 1, thanks, Tyler. 2, did he send us secret RSVP at gmail.com?
No, he didn't actually. He didn't use our favorite email address, but he reached out directly through a DM. Right. So that also works.
Cool. Thanks. Anybody else that wants to do that, Colin probably will run out of stickers at some point and not want to send them for free, but you never know.
I'm
just
fine
ask.
With it.
Just ask.
You want stickers? Let me know.
All right. You made comment of our awesome studio, and I think your background is significantly better than mine.
Yeah, I put it up.
That's good.
Yeah, just the other day. Well, I've had these posters and everything up, but yeah, just kind of I put the American flag up just because thought I'd have that besides a garage wall.
It's a good aesthetic. It's a nice corner. I like it.
Yeah, those flags are actually pretty important to me.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, we'll talk about that, I guess, once we get going.
I like it. Perfect. Why don't we start there?
There we go.
What's this? Are you a vet?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for the support. No, these flags actually, I was in Iraq in 2003, 2004, the initial invasion north, and I was the color sergeant for my unit. So wherever the colonel went, these flags had to go. So I had them folded up in my pack the entire time I was in Iraq. And then we actually had a few ceremonies, and these flags, you make them look nice, put them on the post, and we did a few ceremonies with these flags. So they flew in in Iraq in 03, 04 with my unit. And then when we got back into mainland, we had to get new flags because they're pretty ratty and beat up. So I got to keep them. I didn't really tell anybody. I just kind of kept them.
That was my next question. I was going to be like, so you just get to keep those? That's great. Not really. Okay. Well, it's a big government. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff. It's, it is what it is. And also, I don't know, it feels like kind of your thing to have at that point.
Yeah, no, I've carried those things for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, you took care of them. So they're like your baby. You gotta keep them. See them through. Send them to college. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Like, having a flag in the background is great. But having a flag with a hell of a story.
Yeah, a nice background story.
Man, that's way better.
Very cool.
Mike's gonna love that. By the way, our friend Mike, who's on this show regularly, is a Marine, a former Marine, and he would have been in Afghanistan at a similar time. I think it would have been 05-ish, 05, 06, I would think. So anyways, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So what's your? That's a great base story. But we talk about cars a lot because that's like the main thing that shares our mind space all the time. What's your vehicle history like? What got you to off-road guy, ZR2 guy?
Oh wow. I guess I started with an old ZJ, 96 ZJ with the 5.2 V8 in it, and I had that my last couple of years in the Marine Corps, and then I went to college in the end of 04, and I met a guy named Jesse Lee. Met him on the track team at Fresno State, and he was from Hawaii, and he built his XJ in Hawaii and shipped it over to mainland when he went to Fresno State. So we met on the track team, and he had a 4.9-inch rear end and a Dana 60 up front. And I said, I really need to get to know this guy because I have a
right.
little ZJ. And he's a wizard. He is almost like a savant kind of awkward guy, and I love him to death only because he's taught me so much. But in college, I met him, so that was over 20 years ago, and I guess not over 20 years, almost 20 years ago. And I basically told him, hey, dude, if you teach me how to weld and fabricate like you have on your truck, like your dad taught you to, I'll buy you a welder, I'll buy you a grinder, and everything to fabricate. And we went down to Harbor Freight and got the cheapest stuff I could find, really. And we took it all to his garage, and he lived with 2 or 3 other track athletes at the time. So we're just a bunch of dudes in the garage drinking anything you can get your hands on. And he taught me how to fabricate. So his XJ and my ZJ, and we just kind of took those rigs everywhere for a long time, and then blew that thing up and bought another ZJ, and we've just kind of kept upgrading rigs and kept going. And then he finally he got into Toyotas and built a race rig out of a Toyota many years ago, and he turned that into a 48 class Ultra 4 rig.
Nice.
And he had a awesome co-driver before me. His name is Marcus. I don't know if you guys know him, Turbo Toy on Instagram, but that was his co-driver before me. And then he kind of went off and did his own thing with his own Toyota, and now I became the co-driver with Jesse Lee. And we are the only, I guess not the only, but one of the only Toyota powered V8s in the 48 class and Ultra 4. And we've podiumed a few times together. We've finished Hammers, the actual King of the Hammers race, a few times together. And just, I guess, wow, 5 years ago, I got the ZR2, and I kind of planned everything around Ultra 4 and trying to follow his Ultra 4 rig with my ZR2.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I've been planning to build this thing. I just don't have the money to do everything at once. It's
That's a big
Yeah, classic
big task.
problem.
yeah, that's what we all go through. Is I mean, if you had the money, you'd make the craziest rigs, but just kind of
Yep.
learning from Jesse basically, and then getting kind of smarter and learning more and earning a little bit more money here and there, and finally getting the ZR2 to kind of maybe be able to follow him through some crazy obstacles that he does with his 48 class rig. So now I got the
So is
ZR2
that
and we're still building it.
nice? Is his rig? You said it's a Toyota V8, so is it like a 1UZ?
Yes, 1UZ. Yeah, yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
But he's got probably almost 400 horsepower. I mean, everybody else is 500, 600, 700 horsepower. We're only running 400, but his suspension from ADS actually equals him out to be able to be very competitive. So it's cool to see doing more with less.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. How did it do this year?
So I was not his co-driver this year. He had another Marine Corps buddy. Actually, so Jesse, after I met him, another little bit of side story.
Yeah.
He went to the Marine Corps after college, and
Oh,
he
interesting.
went into reconnaissance, and then he made a bunch of other Marine Corps friends after that. But so anyway, my point is his co-driver this year is one of his reconnaissance Marine Corps buddies, and they did really well. They got 14th, I believe, and the
Nice.
co-driver, or and I co-drive for Andrew Gorman, and we got 13th. So we came back to back right on each other.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was
I
crazy.
went there for the first time this year, and it's wild. Like it is really cool. I only stayed for a day. I was there for the Race of Kings, and it was really neat to see just the whole thing. To see him running through there, crazy to watch it. Like I've seen short course races, but I've never seen something like that. That is like all these different spots that you can view from, and the I clued in really quickly to like I know where the leader is because I know where the helicopter is,
Right.
which was crazy to me. Like that part of it was wild.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine
Yeah.
being in the driver's seat, the co-pilot seat even. And sometimes I would think that'd be crazier sometimes, just being so aware of the map and all the stuff and what's going on.
Well, I the first time Jesse and I finished or raced KOH together, it was over 8 hours, and I was telling everybody's asking me how it was and what was it like. I mean, you're in an 8 hour car wreck, with your head bobbling the entire time, and you feel like your kidneys are getting punched the entire time. It's brutal, absolutely brutal. The 44 cars, they have all the suspension in the world. But the 48 cars, we're limited to one shock per corner, and it just beats the heck out of you. So it'll wear you out for the next week after that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like I never really thought about from the co-pilot seat. Like what are your responsibilities in that scenario?
I from learning from Jesse, he he's a good enough driver to get everything done by himself. He's a smart driver. He built his own rig from scratch in his garage. He knows every inch of it, and
Yeah, he knows what's going on.
yeah, and he definitely wants to know if there's lanes, if there's other lanes you can take, or if someone's coming ahead, but I'm staring at this little 5 by 5 inch screen the entire time. So it's kind of like you don't really get to see a whole lot. But yeah, so you're just in a boxing match and you don't get to punch back. So,
Have you guys had any crazy breaks or anything that have like you gotta be out of the truck, fix a flat, whatever?
well, yeah, that's actually I have a crazy story about our first time getting through KOH. Jesse's parents flew in from Hawaii, and I'm gonna take these out just a little bit. Jesse's parents flew in from Hawaii, and it was my first time co-driving with him. So I really, really wanted to get him to the finish line, which is an accomplishment in itself, not just, podium finish or a win or anything, just trying to get to the line.
Getting there, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so our first KOH together, we were out on the big desert loop. So there's the big desert loop and then there's the rocks. And the first loop is the desert loop to kind of spread everybody out a little bit. And our temperature, our engine temp was going up too high, too fast, and we had to kind of slow the car down, while cars are passing us because we had just passed. I mean, it was such an amazing first lap that we had, and we were nearing the end of it, passing 15, 20 cars, and then at the end of it, our engine temp was going up. So to have all those cars pass us again was so frustrating. So the temperature was going up, and we had to pull over and stop. And the fan, so he has one big electric fan, and it's behind us on the radiator behind us. And he basically threw in the towel and said, "We're done. We can't. This fan's broken, and we're not going to be able to make it to the remote pit one, and on the big first loop." So I go, "Okay, all right. Well, I'll look at it and see if you give me permission, can I like cut into your car a little bit?" And he goes, "Yeah, go ahead, whatever." And there was another rig probably like 100, 200 feet up the hill. So he went to go kind of talk to them and see if they needed anything and try to help them out. So I start, we don't have much tools. We have like a little roll, but not much to do anything, and a bunch of zip ties and all that. And I had a little pocket knife with me. And I ended up taking off the fan, and you can see where it was. I actually have the fan hanging up right here, and because it's important to me, it was a cool story. So the bolts, there were 4 bolts, or I forget what it was. Something broke, so the fan was like free spinning onto nothing, and I carved some new holes in it, and I zip tied it to other holes that I had made from the shaft. And I turned on the car. He was still, at the other rig talking to the other guys. And I turned on the car and it starts spinning again. And then it starts cooling the fan. And long story short, we get moving again, just enough to get us to remote pit one. And by the time we got to remote pit one, like I was telling you about, Marcus, his first co-driver, he was out there in his Toyota rig just kind of screwing around. And we had radioed to our pit that we need a fan that's back in camp. And so he zipped in his Toyota to go back to camp and then come back out to pit one with a brand new fan that Jesse actually had with him. So by the time we got to pit one, he was pulling in at the exact same time. And then we all got out and we're changing the fan, and then on we went to the next episode, of the race. And that wasn't the only thing, just a cool little break like that. And then by the time we got into the main pit, something else had broke, and oh man, what was it? Something broke, and this is the funniest part. Sorry to ramble on a little bit about.
Please ramble.
You're good.
My first KOH. But gosh, we were at the main pit after our first lap, and something broke. I forgot what it was, but we didn't have that part. But there's you went to KOH this year. There's vendors all around in King of the Hammers, right? So Jesse has to go find this part, and he's obviously in full race suit, and he took his helmet off, and he knew he didn't have the part at the camp, so he went to the Mackenzie's trailer, which is the far corner, usually was the far corner of Hammertown, and he didn't want to run there or walk there. So one of the guys in the pit next to us said, "Hey, I got a bicycle." So he's in a full race suit doing a little, to Mackenzie's. Actually, my fault. He went to the camp to get his wallet, and then he went to Mackenzie's to buy the part, and then he rode the bike back. God. And the funniest thing was my girlfriend, this is my first time my girlfriend had come out to King of the Hammers, and she saw this weird guy with a full suit, riding a bike, and she's thinking, what is this guy doing? Is he in the race or whatever? And her telling the story is hilarious because she sees this guy riding, close to camp, and she notices it's Jesse. Like, Jesse, what the heck are you doing? And he goes, Ryan's in the pit fixing something. I'm going to buy something, and it was just a crazy mess.
Oh my god!
And then he finally got
That's
back
awesome.
to the main pit, and we put the part on, and off we went to the rock lap. So,
God.
yeah.
So that is one thing that like I didn't really get to see it being there, but like in all the media coverage and like the things I've seen in the past, like there's a huge amount of like camaraderie and like helping others out, and like you see it all the time. There's so many videos of like, dude gets stuck here, everybody's trying to help him because they, one, probably because they need to get past him, but whatever. But there's a ton of stuff, and I can imagine only if you see that out on the actual course, that in the pits, it's got to be 10 times more with like, what can I help with? Our truck isn't here. Like, let's help you. What do you got? Like,
right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
Awesome.
And I pitted for Jesse before I was actually in the co-driver's seat, and we would do that. We would help anybody who came out, and what do you guys need to random people that I don't know in the pit next to us? What do you guys need? Do you want me to jack the car up? Do you want me to bring a tire in? Whatever. And people would do that for us as well. So, and not only in the pits, like you said, like out in the course. Even this year when I was riding with Andrew, we had somebody, we were stuck in a spot, and we would have been a tampon in a spot, plugged it up, and a Jeep came up, and I didn't even get out of the truck, and he hooked me up and pulled me out, or not me, but pulled us out. And just little things like we bump people or they bump us, we give them the signal, and everybody's kind of working together
I need a bump
to get through. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm yelling like, give me a bump, like out the side, and they all know it.
There are many times where many times I wish we could do that, just like snow wheeling. I could be like, hey, come on, give me a bump. I need it. It's less exciting when you don't have a tube chassis buggy, but or more exciting, maybe.
Exciting. Lots of crumples.
Yeah, lots of crumples. Oh man. Well, that is really cool. Like that's a neat thing. Do you have any ambition to run your own car at some point? Is that?
Absolutely.
I mean, I know you mentioned absolutely, yeah. I know you mentioned like building the ZR2 towards that. Like, is that the end goal? Like, get that to a spot where you can do, that kind of class, or is there another thing you have your eye on?
Yeah, I mean, as far as Ultra 4 goes, it really takes a lot of money, but I would really love to have a 44 car, unlimited class, and just go as fast as I possibly can go through King of the Hammers. And all the other courses are awesome to go through as well, like Mexico. We run there, and Utah, and Lake Havasu. I would love to have a 44 car going through all that stuff. But really, I have a buddy in Sacramento who has a frame and a ZR2 cab and all the ZR2 stuff that I need to build a 46 stock class car. I just need some funding to do it. It's just like everybody.
Well, I'm happy to commit $20-$30 to this ordeal. No problem. When you're ready.
Yeah.
I don't want to come in on the podcast and try to like angel invest, but like if you need, I could probably be convinced into $40, I think.
All right. Okay. Hey, that's a start. Yeah. For lunch.
That might get you part of your lunch for the co-driver, but not you. That's crazy. The one thing, so like I've noticed, I've watched over the years, like so stock chassis is it 4800? That's the Everyman Challenge one? Or is that
so 48 is a limited 44 car basically with a few things. So 48 class is you have to have a front engine, and I think that's actually changed now. You can actually rear engine a 48 car. But you're limited to 37-inch tires and one shock per corner and a solid axle. You have to have a solid front axle. So, and I think there's a few other things. But.
Got it. The one thing that I've noticed there is, and you broke up a tiny bit, so you might have covered this, but no glass. And I've seen like guys that run like there's when like Marlin Crawler came out with that RCLT kit, they ran that Forerunner like it was pre-production like parts, and it was really cool and neat to see. And then like as an outsider looking in, I was like, oh man, it is once you pull the glass out of something and put a cage in it, it's a race car. Like as far as I'm concerned, that is past the line. And so like I totally get it, and it would be a nightmare to deal with glass on a course like this or any of those courses. But part of me is like, oh, okay, well, it's not so much a normal rig now that it has that. It is a safer, better rig for sure, but it's a little tougher. It's a little bit more like on that next level.
Yeah, you're not driving that thing to Costco anymore to pick up a bunch of groceries. Yeah.
I saw some killer rigs just running around there though too, and at Johnson Valley, I knew that going in, like I was pretty sure that's what I was gonna see, but like, God, it's just, I mean, these people it's insane some of the things that are cruising around there.
That's some of my favorite stuff.
Buckets of shit too.
See what other people bring and how everybody does it differently. There's no set perfect 100% right way to do anything. Everybody has their own way of doing it, and like you said, going out there and seeing all the different rigs is really cool to get ideas and to learn from other people. That's one of the cool things about being out there.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that's interesting is the diversity of like what's there and the diversity of what races too. Like it's less a spec race. It's not F1. It's not GT3. It's not any of those kinds of like groups of cars. And there's obviously a rule book that everybody's working around, and they're extracting the most that they can around those rules. And so in turn, things are similar, but like to a different point, you've got your buddy running one of the only Toyota V8s, right? Like that's different because it's allowed, and that's super cool that that he's willing to do that instead of throwing an LS in it, which is great. And that's fine. I have an LS motor. I get it. I love it. But like it's not the only way. And because the rules don't say it's the only way, you can have a guy with that. You can have a person with a 2J or a whatever. Like anything is, the sky's the limit. The Broncos with rear steer and all this crazy stuff that you're just like, this is innovation, and because the rule book is a certain way, it allows that innovation to kind of live in Ultra 4, and it seems to have gotten more successful. I hope it keeps getting that way. I hope it keeps growing and growing and growing and showing that.
I think it really has grown, and I haven't seen any slowing in sight, because the quintessential like 4x4 20 years ago must solid axle swap, must have 40s, must have this, must have that, and it's completely different these days. Everything is IFS, and they're destroying everybody out in the desert loop with those portals, and it's really crazy. That's everybody telling me how how people are on Instagram. They tell you what to do to your rig, and you're doing it wrong, and why are you doing this? You should have done that, and your tie rods are gonna explode, whatever. So when I keep my IFS in my truck and I'm trying to build it as like a 1-ton IFS, people are thinking, oh, well, that's new and innovative. No, we've been doing it in Ultra 4 44 class for a good decade now. It's just nobody really catches up to the expensive stuff and trying to do it cheaply. It's just I still agree with the solid axle swap if you want to go crazy and do some buggy crawling and stuff like that. But I feel like the future is not only IFS, but maybe something somebody else comes up with at some point. And that's what I love about Ultra 4. It's everybody does it their own way.
Yeah, I mean, I get stuck just like anybody else in like the things that I like and the things that I pay attention to. But like, I think you're completely right. Like, it doesn't even have to be IFS. It can be the next thing. Like, it can be, what else comes up? And like portals are a really interesting example of that, because the 74 Weld is like the company that is out there right now. But there are other companies, and those guys have been doing that product for long enough in Ultra 4 that like that's a really interesting thing to me that they took that and they were like, hey, I bet we can sell this to a guy with a Tacoma.
Right.
And sure enough, they can. It's not like there's a huge adoption rate. They're very expensive because they're very nice and they're very high quality. But like, that's pretty cool. And that's like a direct, thing that has come from the racing side of this. And maybe we'll see more of it. Maybe we see, more factory stuff. Maybe we see all of that. And I think that's great. I mean, that just pushes the hobby and the sport, but the hobby for us, even further up. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Even the little buggy guys like Jesse Haynes. I don't know if you guys know him. He's got he uses the H1 portals, the 2-gear portals in his trail. He uses a trail gear housing, and he just makes the knuckles, big enough to handle the 2-gear portal, and even that is just giving 3-4 inches of ground clearance is huge for those rock buggies that they do trail breakers and stuff like that. And even I got to sit and talk with him, talk about innovation, man. That guy is a genius. He's almost like my buddy Jesse. They're like a savant, and their brains work in a totally different way.
Completely different.
It's so cool. So I got to talk to him, and he got into some real scientific stuff about which way the front drive shaft turns and then which way the rear drive shaft turns, so that when he's all flexed out going up a thing, and he floors it, the chassis twists onto itself instead of one way, and he has like a reverser turning the rear drive shaft so that it pushes the wheels into the ground instead of against each other. It's such a crazy thing. So much innovation, I love talking to these guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like it takes a long time for that to trickle all the way down to your average Instagram troll. But it's really cool that it exists, and it's really cool that people get to experience. And in my experience, at least, the people that are doing those things, right, that are like coming up with those ideas, or they're testing the limits, or they're creating new companies around it, they're usually the most excited to share it. They're the most excited to say, like, ask me questions. I want to tell you about the thing that I'm doing. And I think that's really cool too. The gatekeepers tend to live a lot further down the spectrum.
I agree with you. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. And not that they don't exist, and they exist in the middle somewhere too. I'm sure that, they're, but it seems like the more innovative thinkers, the more that people have the experience, or the, just the passion to keep going with it, the more they're willing to share it to keep that hobby going. I think that is great. Like, that is something that, like, Colin and I disagree on this sometimes, because we call Colin Hater Colin very frequently, because he's a very shout out to Colin here. He's a very caring guy. He really is. He's an excellent family man. I could just talk him up all day, but I don't want to do that. So, but he's got a set group of things that he really likes, and he's very quick to say, I don't like that, which is okay, right? He's happy in his opinions. But the thing that's that we disagree on a lot of times is that I tend to take the, like, not respect all builds. I hate that word, but like respect what somebody has done, right? Like, if somebody's put a leveling kit on their Colorado, for example, and it's got 35s and it's got 8 inches of wheel gap, and I don't really like it, like, good for them. At least they like it. I don't care, right? That's where we tend to disagree, because Colin's like, nope, it's stupid. You shouldn't have done that. That was a stupid move.
That's funny you say that.
And I also think it's stupid.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I mean, here's the thing. I think it's stupid, but in the name of being the Jesse Haynes of the world, right? Like, I want to say, good for you for being a part of the sport. Like, and if they're not, and there's plenty that aren't, whatever, fuck them. I don't care. Get along with your day with your stock truck. I do not care. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I think as a whole, and I think racers are really good at this. People that work in the industry sometimes are really good about this. Like, it's nice to tell the young kid who had $500 because he got his taxes back that his leveling kit makes his truck look kind of cool. To me, that's not bad.
Yeah, you're a
I'm
nice
not going
guy.
to say, wow, you should run King of Hammers next year. This thing is sick.
Yeah, unrealistic goals. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's got to be realistic. So, anyways, that reminds me. So Colin, when we were going over like, hey, we're having Ryan on here. Let's go over some history of who he is and what he's done. You're like the guy that put big tires on a Colorado ZR2. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got there? Were you like just like, hey, I want 37s. Like, what do I do? Figure it out.
Yeah, no, that goes along with how crazy the crazy ideas I have, and I forced my buddy Jesse Lee to go along with it. So
A good friend.
yeah. Well, he goes wheeling all the time with all of his buddies, and all I want to do is follow along. All I want to do is be there and hang out with all my buddies. But they go on trails that a stock truck just can't make. So the first step was 37s, and I put out a video on YouTube 4 or 5 years ago about me, or maybe it's 3 or 4 years ago, whatever. Me basically just chopping the wheel wells, just cutting off metal and sticking on 37s on the stock suspension, and it worked. And that was actually probably my favorite way I had that ZR2 was with the 37s on the stock suspension. I mean, I loved it. I got the diesel and I deleted and tuned it, and I was getting 40 something miles per gallon on the trip to the trail.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it's
because you had the gearing with the tires. Yeah,
but just 456. Well, I had 456s in there and the 37s, and I would just keep it at like 65 miles an hour, and just I loved it when it was like that. But we all want more, and I couldn't do a certain few trails. And I ended up doing the BDS lift and the Baja kits A-arms to widen it out a little bit. And I ended up getting 40s on there. And I love it. It was doing great with the stock axle in the rear because the stock axle in ZR2 is a Dana 46, which is kind of weird. It's very close to the Bronco and the Jeep Dana 44 Advantech, but it has I forget what it is. I think the tube is just a little bit thicker or wider. But anyway, the truck did great on 40s, but I think I kind of destroyed that rear locker, mainly because I didn't know how that e-locker worked really. It has like this valley and then this pin kind of sits in this valley. When you lock it and you go forward, you have to roll forward and then now it's locked. But then if you reverse it unlocks and then it goes back into lock. So I'm thinking my stock rear axle's locked, and I'm going forward and back trying to bang up an obstacle, and I think I destroyed that. So it was time to upgrade to the 14 bolt on the rear end. So the 14 bolts on the rear end will never break on me, especially it's only running 40s. That thing will eat that up all day long. But
oh yeah.
But I'm still very careful with it because the front axle is still stock, and I'm actually building a fabricated housing from Trail Gear. The Trail Gear gave me a brand new fabricated housing, and I'm chopping it off to where the pumpkin is right here, and it's chopped, and then it has a little bit of a stub axle coming out, and I'm gonna basically just plug it in. And so once I do that, then 40s, maybe 42s, and just keep hammering up trails.
Does that Trail Gear setup, does that run like a 9-inch third member basically?
Exactly. Yeah. So they have the ones for the Toyota third members, or you can do a 9-inch or even a 10-inch third member if you have the money for it. So
nice. So 9-inch front, that'll be good.
Should be pretty burly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, like I'm saying, it's burly right now and it's handling everything really well. But
so have you had any trouble with the front?
Oh yeah. Oh no, I broke some spider gears. I have it sitting up in my garage right here. The spider gears broke. The CVs are handling it really well. I just keep screwing up the boot. The boot keeps ripping and all kinds of stuff. But the actual splines and the bearings and everything are handling everything really well. But I'll still be upgrading that once I do the 9-inch up front. But it's gonna stay IFS. It's gonna be I have 2,500 knuckles that have they're a 4-inch lift Fab Tech 4-inch lift 2,500 knuckles. So I'll be running a 2500 unit bearing, which is much, much bigger than the Colorado unit
Mm-hmm.
bearing. And the coolest thing about that is the ABS plugs right in. I mean, so I still have ABS and no Christmas tree lights on my.
Perfect.
So I'm the first one figuring all this out. I'm plugging things in, getting under the rig, and trying to do it so that at some point I can maybe offer a 1-ton swap rig, or a situation for any Colorado, and it'll all plug and play with your system.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I think as those rigs get older, they're not old by any means. They're still there is a new generation, but they're still pretty new. Yeah. But as they age, right, like people will pick them up and start doing more and more and more of that. So like that's perfect. That makes a lot of sense to have that, innovation of making the next step on those. It's funny because like people put 14 bolts in the back of all sorts of stuff, and people put Dana 60s in the back of stuff. We just had one of the guys that we just had on recently has a 60 in the back of his Lexus GX, right? And,
oh, nice.
So nice. Whatever, it makes sense. But when I saw that your truck had a 14 bolt in it, I went, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Of course you would do that. Yeah. It's only because it's GM to GM, right? Like, absolutely. But like in my head, I just went, oh, of course, yeah. Wonder what else you could swap over. Like,
well, now that you say that, I'll let you know. I've been posting it online a little bit here and there, but I kind of destroyed that diesel motor, that 2.8 diesel motor in my rig. I think an injector failed and either melted a hole through a piston or just cracked it or something. But I figured out it's cheaper to buy an LS with a transmission than it is to rebuild the diesel motor in there. So I have a 6.2 liter L92 sitting right next to me right here that I'm working on. And it's all GM, and it's all going to plug right into the BCM.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it's all GM, but like you were just saying, the 14 bolt ABS plugged right into the plugs, into the frame. And
thank you, GM.
It's crazy. Why would you want to do anything else? So.
Yeah, I've been seeing a couple of LS swap Colorados of that generation, and it's like people aren't really complaining about like it being all that difficult because just like you said, it's like it's GM is GM and it's all fairly like plug and play for each other, which is like such a cool thing because it's like I said, there's not necessarily anything wrong with the diesel, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with the V6 either. Like they're perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But with them being that new, it costs a hell of a lot more to rebuild said motors or buy said motors when an LS is more affordable and isn't that much more difficult to put back in after you pulled one out. So why not?
Why not? Yeah, no, I completely agree with you.
How did you get to the point of like, because when you did all the cutting for 37s, it was a pretty new truck.
Yeah.
How did you get to the mind space of I'm chopping the shit up of my brand new truck?
Yeah, that was actually it hurt my heart to measure it out and think, oh man, I'm really gonna put a blade to this. But I'll have to tell you, I have zero regrets. Once I put those 37s on and the truck handled it great, the transfer case handled everything, the transmission didn't really like it too much, but everything else, the truck really, really handled it really well. But to be able to cut those fenders that actually never come back from that cut, it was tough. But like I was saying, I'll never regret it. It was a cool thing to do that nobody had ever done before, and it actually got me a lot of attention on social media and kind of built my brand a little bit. And once I started going out and hammering down a little bit on some crazy trails, got a lot of attention, and it really didn't hurt the truck at all very much until I started doing really, really stupid things, like putting 40s on it and stuff. But
that's the way it goes, right?
Yeah.
Finding that line.
Your question's valid. I mean, that is difficult to do to a new truck, especially, I think it's a beautiful truck, compared to everything else, the Rangers and the Tacomas and all that stuff. I feel like the Colorado has just this beautiful kind of muscly look to it, and then to just say screw it and chop into that definitely hurts for sure.
Yeah, that's a ballsy move. It really is.
And we didn't know it would work
doing it.
out either, but it ended up working out. So like I recommend it to anybody. If you got a Colorado, look at my video, chop your fenders and put on 37s. You won't regret it, I promise.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm not far behind you. I just got a ZR2 like a couple months ago.
No way.
And yeah, and it's when they came out, I always said to myself, like, that's the new midsize truck that I would buy. Like you said, I agree with you 100%. They look better than the Ranger. They look better than the Tacoma. And it's the best starting point for a midsize if you're not getting a Gladiator. Like, as far as like, you've got the lockers, like everything is there and set. So like as itself on its own, it's a really good truck.
Yeah.
And then if you're going to go further than that, do we have to talk about cab, the cab mount chops for 35s? No. Like everything is so much simpler. And so when I found that like that was part of it, like, oh, you put the crazy expensive AEV flares on it and look, you can put 35s on it and nothing else. Like you don't have to do anything else. It's like, okay, so if I do flares and a tiny lift, hey, look, I can fit 37s.
Easy.
And I still haven't chopped really much of anything. So, I mean, that's my plan is to do that. Like just go very minimal lift with the tall flares, just because I can't commit myself to cutting as much as you did. I'm having a hard time with it. It's the newest truck I've ever owned. So like, I'm going to have a hard time getting that into my head. But the flares will kind of hide, that hides it a little bit. So it makes it feel a little bit better. And so, yeah, just little lift, little cutting, and 37s. And I'm going to be happy as I can be, probably.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite looking truck. Honestly, you see it on the freeway, you see it on the trail. A ZR2 on 37s, minimal lift, maybe like a spacer or a peak suspension or a coilover that you can adjust up front just to go up a little bit.
That was my plan, was the peak coilover.
Go talk to Nick. You should come out to our next Colorado run out in Calico.
All right, I'll see my way out.
We can grow it out. Yeah, no, that's my favorite truck. Is the ZR2 on 37s, man. It really is, it's unbreakable. It's unbeatable, and I can't speak highly enough of the way that it looks and the way that it performs. But what year is it?
18.
Oh, same as mine. 18. Oh yeah, you're set, dude. That's awesome, dude. I'm so
reassurance is great.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I was going to do it whether you said not to or not, but
cool. Heck
it's great to have reassurance.
Don't listen to anybody, man. I've never listened to anybody.
Never.
I typically don't anyway, so yeah, no worries there.
Good.
I had something before we got down the ZR2 topic, and I just totally lost it. I have no idea. No clue.
Good.
ZR2s are neat.
Yeah. Hey.
Front lockers are great. That's really that's my input on the situation. And I like not very much lift in 37s. That's good too.
Yeah. Well, you don't even need to lift it. You really don't.
You just cut the shit out of it.
Yeah.
If you have balls like Ryan and not like yours.
Not like, I'm I'm still a little scared.
You'll be good, man. We'll talk after this, and I'll set you up with exactly what you need to have it dialed, man. Yeah, it'll be good.
There we go. They are cool trucks. Like I think I like Tacomas because I am a bit of a Toyota guy.
All right,
but I don't have I try not to oh man.
No, he's leaving. Thanks.
I try not to be too biased in my things, but I like Tacomas because they're Toyotas. That's the main reason. But secondary to that, it's Colorado. We've talked about this. I don't Rangers, whatever. I don't. All that Frontier is not even mentioned. I think the Gladiators, like Colin kind of alluded to, are kind of the one that makes the most sense to me. I don't like the way they look. Sorry, Luke.
Yeah.
I think they're cool rigs.
Some people just aren't Jeep people, man.
I'm just not a Jeep guy.
I
love it. Like, so we had this, we had a time over the summer where my rig was down. We did this wheeling trip. Buddy went out of town. He's got a JK Rubicon, and he was like, "Hey, man, take my Rubicon." It's our friend Mike that we were talking about earlier is a Marine, and hell yeah, Mike, I'll drive your Jeep. We're that kind of friend, right? Like, I would let him take my vehicle, no problem.
Nice.
I take it. It's a cheat code. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's the S13 of off-roading.
And I drive an 80 series Land Cruiser, and because of that, I think I'm better than a lot of people. And it's this whole thing we always joke about, right? But like, I love it, and it does a lot of things really well, I think, right? And I got in that JK, and I went, this is kind of like a dulled down, awful version that is of my rig. That's probably better, really, if we're being honest, because it's got a 4-to-1 transfer case in it. And I just let it, idle up on air conditioning and crawl through everything we drove through. And it was great. But like, styling, like being a car nerd, a big car nerd, overall, like styling wise, I don't get it. I don't like them. It's just not for me. But I understand that it exists for a reason. It's a good rig, and that's where the Gladiator is. It's like we had this episode of the podcast recently where we did like the top 5 vehicles that you would build like as a dream vehicle. What was the parameter? Like under $100,000? Yeah. And I think my number 1 maybe was Gladiator with like a camper, right? Like, I think that makes a lot of sense because you could build it, you can put big tires on it, you could put good shocks on it, and like, what else do you need to do? Nothing, because it's perfect. That's not what I want. But if someone said, here's this amount of money, build the best thing, that's what I would build. Like, there's a difference between what I would make versus what I actually like. Yeah,
the issue we run into, at least I know Sean and I do, when it comes to the Jeep, is like, we've had this conversation. You probably had this conversation because, like, if you're a car person, you have this conversation of, why would I drive something that I don't like the look of? Like, if I can't turn around and look at it as I walk away and be like, you know what, I like that.
Yeah.
Then why would I even own it?
Yeah. Well, that the stock Gladiator is ugly. Like, I think everybody knows that. But
I hope so.
A Sport with a soft top is the worst looking vehicle on the road today.
Yeah, it's ugly. Yeah, big box going down the road. But if you maybe do a little bit of a lift, or if maybe it has 37s or 40s on it, they start to look a little bit better. And I wouldn't mind driving a Gladiator with Dana 60 front and rear and a Hellcat motor, and it'd be cool, man.
One of our good friends has one. It's got like Bilstein 8100s, and it's got AEV springs or something, and 37s and wheels and a GFC. Like, it's the ultimate overland rig that's not too overbuilt and underbuilt in any way. Like, it's perfect, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's fine.
It doesn't do a whole lot for you.
It's a diesel. That's cool.
But it's going to do everything that he asks it to do.
It'll outrun, or it'll outwheel the rest of us most of the time.
Yeah.
Except for me. No, it's true.
Oh, except for the Land Cruiser guy. Sorry, we forgot that.
But other than that, it's a great rig. It's just kind of So this is all to say, I'll let you guys, get really into your ZR2 talk because they're fine.
Because they're fine.
They're fine.
Wow. My problem, my real problem with Jeeps and Gladiators is it's so easy to upgrade them. Everybody has already figured it out for you, and it's just Legos at that point. Plug and play kind of thing.
Yeah, not a lot of creativity.
And and you go out to King of Hammers and you look at the Toyotas. I mean, they're throwing random stuff in their rig to make it work, and it's amazing. And then the same thing with the ZR2s. I mean, I feel like I'm the one figuring out these different ways to go. And if you buy a Jeep, it's all already been figured out for you. There's no work to be done.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing really to be proud of to like build on. I mean, there is, but there isn't. But
it's tough to stand. So I have this conversation. Colin and I actually really have this conversation because of his place is Hater Colin. But like, I always say just because it's different doesn't mean it's better, right? Like,
Okay, I agree
it
with
just,
that. Yeah.
right? Like, it doesn't, just because you blazed a trail doesn't mean that it's the better trail. It's just a new trail.
Yeah.
But Jeeps give you so many trails that it's really tough to stand out. It's really tough to do anything that's not the norm, really. Like, that's just kind of the thing. I had a buddy recently that reached out. He got a new 4xe Rubicon. It's super cool, whatever. What bumper should I get? It's like, man, I don't know. Google it and find the best one you like, because there's 50 of them.
Yeah.
There's a million of them. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, if you had a new Tacoma, which is a bad example, I might have some opinions about that. I might say, man, if you're overlanding, get this. If you want something that's 2-bumper, get this. If you don't want to cut your bumper, get this. End of story.
Mhm.
But with a Wrangler, it's like, just look at the catalog and point at the one you like, because they're all pretty fine quality.
Oh,
There's garbage for cheap, and there's things that are way too expensive. But other than that, there's a million options. And so when you're modifying something like a ZR2 or, probably to an extent like a Frontier or something like that, like, there's a lot more involved in figuring out what you can get and how to make that aesthetically what you want and, actually work in the way you need.
mhm.
So it makes it harder in a good way, I think.
Yeah, but I like what you said. Just because it's different doesn't mean it's better. I agree with that. And, that's part of why we're car lovers. We love to maybe stand out a little bit or be able to do something another rig can't, or and talk shit to your friends, and it's all part of it. It's a lot of fun to just
Yeah.
kind of figure it all out. And when it comes to a Jeep, you don't really need to figure anything out. You just I want that on this, and then you put it on, and it's done. There's like right now, what's crazy is this LS motor that I have sitting right next to me. It's it is getting easier because people have done it, and because of this company called Current Performance in Florida that builds the electrical system for it, or the wiring. But it's easier to LS swap a Jeep than it is my Colorado, because everybody's already
It
done
makes
it.
a harness. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's crazy. So
Yeah, that's interesting. So I was while we were talking about that originally, when we first brought up the LS swap subject, because I was really interested, because I thought to myself, that V6, what does it come from? Sure enough, turns out the V6 is the same V6 that's in the Caprice, which is like the Holden Commodore thing, and then the Camaro and all those cars, right? So I thought, well, if you can easily LS swap one of those, you should be able to easily LS swap the Colorado.
Turns out.
And if it's a diesel one, I don't know if it even matters. Like,
Yeah.
it just seems like it's the same. So that's cool. I can't believe it took this long for people to actually figure that out. But I assume that people just didn't, like, it wasn't a necessity, right? Like, they
Yeah.
didn't need to.
It was so new.
right.
Yeah.
Like you were saying earlier, the Colorado is kind of new, even though it has the new generation that just came out last year. But the body style that I have, the second gen, it's fairly new, and it is kind of expensive. You don't want to go and beat up your rig when it looks great. But I just kind of wasn't afraid of that, so I was kind of beating things up.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great choice. The diesel is really cool, and that's a great way to go, especially if you're like doing overland stuff or just daily driving or whatever. Like, that's awesome. But if you want the ultimate performance out of it, a V8 is a V8.
Yeah,
it just really is.
You can't argue with it. So
I think that's cool. I'm excited to see. What trans are you doing?
So I got the L92 straight out of a 2007 Cadillac Escalade. So it's an aluminum block, basically an LS3 with a couple minor differences. And I got it attached with the 6L80. So I haven't even unbolted it yet. It's gonna go in just like it is. So the 6L80, and then I'm gonna try to find a way to use the stock transfer case that was in the Colorado. It's called an NQ7. And it's rare. Nobody else uses it, so I got to figure that out on my own. Because the transfer case that came with the 6L80 and the LS is an all-time all-wheel drive. So there's no shifting, there's no four high, four low. It's just all-time all-wheel drive, and I don't want to use that. I can sell it. Somebody can, make a nice for all-wheel drive rally car or something out of that transfer case, but I don't want it. So
Yeah.
I've been talking to Behemoth for a couple of years now, trying to get one of those in my rig, and they didn't really know how to bolt up to the 6L50 that came with the diesel motor in the Colorados. So I'm gonna try to figure out. They have a better idea of what the 6L80 is and how to connect that.
Mm.
So I want to try to get a Behemoth in. But for now, with the wiring and the dashboard and everything, I think I'm just gonna try to throw in this NQ7 with a nice adapter that adapts to the 6L80. So.
Yeah.
And the NQ7 is actually extremely strong. I've opened it up and looked at it. It's full GM32 spline going in, GM32 spline coming out. It's as beefy as a 2500 HD transfer case. So I'm not really afraid of destroying that. I think it'll handle 40s, maybe 42s. But once I get the horsepower of that LS,
Yeah,
I
once
still
there's
have to
power.
I have to kind of watch when I gun it, and so you know how you
Yep.
know.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think that one of the bigger things. So this is weird. So like I have an LS swap, but it's a Gen 3 motor because it's an old rig and it's easy and that's what I got. But like to go to Gen 4, Gen 5 stuff, I think the 6L80, 6L90, 8 speeds and the 10 speeds are like the reason that I'm disappointed that I didn't do the Gen 4 motor. And your truck, it obviously makes sense, right? Because like the electronics match up, it's perfect. Like that's what you want is the same kind of family. And I think that's awesome. I think that's one of the things that like get often overlooked at the basis of LS Swap the World is like, 4L60s and 4L80s are great and they've been around forever and you can do whatever you want to them and everything bolts to them. It's great. But if you want to drive it all the time, a 6-speed, an 8-speed, a 10-speed is a really, really nice thing to have.
They're nice, yeah.
Yeah, that's I've watched a bunch of 10-speed stuff recently. So I don't want to go too far off in the weeds here.
Well, us ZR2 guys. Well, or I'm not sure. I don't know if the diesels had the same, but so mine's a gasser. But like mine has an 8-speed.
Yeah.
From the factory.
You have an 8L45 in yours.
Yeah.
It's nice.
So
a lot of gears.
Yeah, a lot of gears.
A lot of selections there.
And I highly recommend I highly recommend you flush your fluid as soon as possible. Even if that 8L45 needs to get a flush, and I'll send you a link to what you need to put in there. We don't
want the shutter.
No, yeah, exactly. And it happens. It really, really happens. But just something to take care of. Yeah.
Yep. So the last thing then, before we because we're right at the time where I said I was going to start ringing the bell. Okay. You've got a bit of social media following. Is that something? Did you see that? You mentioned that you started seeing social media stuff kind of pop up because of the 37s on the ZR2. Was that the catalyst? Was that the thing that changed it, or were you trying to kind of put some content out there before that?
Man, I really wasn't putting any content out before that. I was many years ago, I was a track coach and a personal trainer and all kinds of stuff, and I tried maybe a little bit of social media with that, but nothing happened, and I kind of said, screw it, I'm over the social media stuff. But once I got a lot of attention for the truck, I would get 10, 15, 20 questions a day. And the reason why I started making actual YouTube videos explaining things was because I was tired of getting all the questions.
Trying to avoid all the questions.
I mean, I loved it, and I loved the attention, and I appreciated everybody, but it really got to a point to where I just could not answer these questions anymore all day long. Let me make a video, and then I kept getting the same amount of questions. Instead of answering them, I would send a link to the video I made.
Yeah.
And
much easier.
Oh man. And then now I'm getting less questions a day. I still get quite a few, but excuse me, but I encourage anybody to ask me anything on Instagram, ReadyRig 4x4. Ask me anything at any time, but when it comes to like the same thing over and over again. Okay, now it's time to make a video for that, so I don't
Yeah.
have to explain it anymore. So that was kind of it, and now it's evolved into, okay, now my rig is kind of been seen around, and now companies like ADS and stuff like, and Trail Gear, that flag behind me right here, they've caught wind, and now they want videos because they have their products on it. So it's kind of evolved
Yeah.
into, it's not work because I love it, and it's just growing, you know. So I don't mind it
Yeah.
at all. I really like it.
That's great. I mean, and I like your approach to that content too. Like, I know what people are trying to ask me. How do I answer this question? Like, to me, that is one of the lowest hanging fruits when it comes to content, in a good way, right? Like, not in a bad way. The best thing to give people is the thing they're asking for so many times, right? So you're not saying like, here I painted my wheels blue. You're saying like, how did I put 40s on this? This is how I did it. And I think that resonates with people because that's what they're asking. They're not asking what wheels you have. They're asking, how did you do that? And so that's really cool. And I think that's a good way to do it. So good for you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was all kind of natural and kind of organic. It just built that way. You know, I just wanted to help people, just like Colin, you know, he's asking, how did you do the 37s? And he's seen other people do the 37s with the AEV, and I think that looks the best. And how do you do it? Well, here's a video. You can check it out if you want, you know.
Yeah. I found, and Colin and I had this conversation when he got his truck. The other thing about Colin you need to know is he's super secretive. So for weeks he had this thing, and we met up for there was actually a reason we met up. Go grab a beer, do something, you know, a couple friends, and walking back out to the parking lot with just Colin and I, and he gets in this blue ZR2 Colorado, and I was like, blue. What color is it?
It's gray.
It's grayish blue. I don't know.
Same.
This guy.
I don't even. It was dark.
It was dark.
I've only seen it in the dark because he's so damn secretive. So I'm like, when did you get this? Anyways, so he says, hey, you know, this is the thing. This is what I'm doing with it. I'm like, great. And I went home, and after we had this conversation of, I kind of want to put 37s on it, I was like, I'm going to Google this, see what I can find. I found you like, immediately. I was like,
Perfect.
Oh, this guy did it. Stock wheels, Patagonias, this and that.
Yep.
Like, here. And Colin was like, oh, I've already seen that.
Yep.
I already know about that. And I just thought to myself, before we even got close to this podcast, I just thought, this dude has the market cornered on ZR2s on 37s.
I found your video doing that like well before I had a ZR2. Because like I said, they were the ones that I was into. And then when you started seeing some people start modifying them at all, I was like, I wonder like how far can you go? And then it just like, I happened across the video of you doing the initial cutting for 37s no lift, and I was just like, man, I'm fucking 100% sold at this point. Like, that's 37s with zero lift is like so up all of our alley. Like it's exactly like you said, it's exactly where you want to be, is like low enough, like, or tall enough, but big tires. Like that's perfect.
And you're not messing with the geometry of the A-arms and anything like that. It's just bolted on and it's ready to go. And like I was saying, that was my favorite way the truck really was, stock suspension on 37.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Good truck.